welcome to Creative Conversations with David and Donna. I'm David.
And I'm Donna.
And I'm Swearingen Durham.
All right.
Our special guest of the day.
The person that I apparently don't know, because this is the person that I call Stacy, but I'm sure there's a big story, so let's hear that story.
Yes, so I am an author, published author. My debut novel hasn't come out yet, but I go by the name Swearingen. It's my mother's maiden name, and it is being continued right now. She has a cousin who, whatever. But I wanted to honor her in that regard. So, and kind of keep my private life and as much as possible.
Okay, so what should we call you now?
You can totally either or. I'm gonna try. This is kind of like early in my writing career, so I'm gonna try along the way to kind of go by Swearingen. But I know you guys, and yes, swear.
Swearingen. Mr. Jen.
My publisher and my editor both call me Swear, so they can swear, Stacy, Swearingen, whatever you want.
Well, I swear to God, do my best not to call you Stacy.
Good people. All right, so I have to back up and say why Stacy or Swear is even on our show.
I like Swear. Let's go with Swear.
We'll go with Swear.
Yeah.
We'll have to think of cool names for ourselves now.
Curse.
Curse, Dare, Swear.
Curse.
Yes, that works. All right, so as so many guests of our show are, this is a former student, and he will tell a little bit about what he remembers about meeting me for the first time and just all our experiences that we went through in your high school career, and I'll just chime in because I have a few of my own.
Okay. It was definitely freshman year, 9th grade. It was my first time ever being in a classroom that had anything to do with speech or drama or anything that I wanted. And I'm sure that both of you are very aware that this community is just not one to, foster creativity and things like that. So it was very exciting for me. And I think it was the very first day of class that you did your peacock call, which was like so famous, and I still to this day use it. And we have peacocks near where we live right now, and I constantly do the call to them and talk to them, and we just have fun.
Well, I think we must too. We gotta hear it.
Our whole branding.
God, no.
Our whole branding is peacocks. We were making the website, which, by the way, you can see a video of Donna doing her famous "Hey Earl" peacock noise on the homepage of our website. Scroll to the bottom, caption that says "What's the deal with all the peacock feathers?" Because it's everywhere. We were looking at pictures, and Donna's like, "We're going to use that one." I'm like, "Well," and you're like, "We're going to use that one because it's a peacock," but it works. It fits our colors really well. I really like it. But that's why there's peacocks everywhere on the YouTube banner. Yeah.
I haven't heard many of my students imitate my peacock.
Down in my throat.
Okay. All right. I understand.
But Hey Earl is known throughout where we live right now. We live really close to Megan's grandparents and her aunt and everything, and it's an unknown thing that I'm like, oh, there's Stacy's talking to the peacocks again. It's a thing.
There he goes again.
Amazing. I love that. So you learned from me how to communicate with wildlife.
So obviously that's the most important thing she taught you. That's the
thing that is stuck.
I love
for sure. But there was also some other things. Going to class with you was the most exciting time I've ever gone to class.
Mm-hmm.
And to have to go to the high school and leave you there. You eventually came to the high school, but it was like, I think my senior year, you had come over to the high school to teach. But it was so devastating going from you and then not having you nearby or anything to, go into that. And, when I was doing drama club and everything, I mean, there was so much that I missed about the class in freshman. It's seriously some of the most fun times. I know.
That makes me smile so big. So when Stacy was in my class, I think it was early in the year because I have to meet so many new people. I just kept looking at him like, I know him from somewhere. And I think I even asked you, have we met before? And you were like, no. And I threw you off. And one day I just had this very, very vivid memory. I looked at you and I went, That's what it is, because I heard you talking about working at Leaps and Bounds.
Yes,
And
yes.
so that's another whole thing we're going to come back to is Stacy's long line of jobs. I think probably it's 10 right now. But we had done a birthday party at a gym that has little birthday parties set up for kids in gymnastics. And I think my daughter had a birthday party, and you were just one of the people out there showing them all.
I was the entertainer, is what they called it.
The entertainer.
I had to basically go out and wrangle kids.
Right.
And hit them with mats and things. Basically.
So you've been in the entertainment business for a long time.
Yeah.
Trying to provide
Yes.
the joy.
Definitely. Entertainment is a huge center for everything that I've ever done. Really.
That's very cool.
So.
But when I did come to the high school, we worked together with the drama club that was there for, I guess, just the 1 year since that was.
Yeah, it was just the 1 year.
So at least we got to see each other one more time.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Well, we kept the connection because I also, David and I have talked a little bit about, I think that you were in my creative writing, not just my theater club.
Yeah.
Or theater class and whatever.
Yeah.
So when I started the creative writing club, I don't even remember how I knew to ask you. How did I know that?
I think we may have been friends on Facebook, and I think that I had mentioned talking about, writing my book, I think, before. I think you had reached out and said, like, I heard you were writing. I can't remember exactly how it went down, but I know I was talking about writing a book almost 5 years ago.
And so I was like, hey, come talk to creative writing. And then you and I kind of ran the club together for the first time we did it. What do you remember about that?
It was very helpful because I feel like we didn't really know what we were doing. It was a very directionless club, which I think was like a good point of it. We just showed up and would write stuff. But I remember Swear getting there, and it just felt like a bit more legit, like oh, this isn't just like people sitting around like picking their noses. This is like we're actually going to try to see what we can learn about writing, and we all did. Like we actually spoke to somebody who was writing a book, which is above where any of us were at. So it was very useful. It was a big highlight of that year was that whole club, and I think I can't speak for everybody else in the club, but it was really cool that you were there.
Oh,
That makes me so happy.
You added so much energy.
Energy.
It was nice.
That's a good word.
Because I could say, hey, let's have a club, but then I bring in somebody to co-host with me. And it's so interesting your reaction when he said, somebody who was writing a book, because you were just trying to figure it out yourself. And that's just what we're just learning so much about with what we're doing, because right now we're just using what we have based on what we've seen other people do, but we're doing it, and we're, everybody helps everybody along the way. And we've talked a lot about inspiration we've gotten from stuff we've read or things we've watched on TV, and they've just, they're presenting what they want to put out to the world, but the impact that it has on people is so important. And so I know that's going to be very cool for you to see as your book comes out. So we got to go back to the beginning of your book and all your journey of finding your publisher, because that's what you can start sharing with people.
Yes.
Yeah, because we want the point of you being on the show to help people, just like we want to do. How do you do it? Where do you go? How do you get there? And I think it's important to talk about your experiences with Donna and how that may have led you to being able to do this, because that's what we want to share with the world. Is you watch videos that Donna makes, and it'll have the same effect of. Right. I always say I want to turn the world into Donna's classroom. So that's. I know. I just think that's awesome. Just in case any listeners are like, why do they always talk about Donna's? Like, yeah, we get it. You were in their class, but it's so important because the point is, being in that class led our guest last week, Lester Landon, to becoming an actor. A big part of him becoming an actor was the influence he had on you. And I would assume that being a part of Donna's class and having her in your life definitely at least boosted you in that direction.
No, absolutely. In this community, especially.
South Louisiana.
South Louisiana, Livingston Parish, to be more precise.
Yeah.
I think Baton Rouge at least has a firmer grasp, I'd say, on the arts. Still very loose grip, but it's firmer than Livingston Parish. And the fact that there was a place that I could go or be in or just be involved in that it wasn't weird to be creative. It wasn't. It was something cool and fun, and you know, there was always the theater kids and the artsy kids that would be in art class and stuff like that, and you just felt like there was so much talent, and it just would never go anywhere. Like we would try. It was just untapped, just completely untapped, and without Donna's class, I'm sure I would have found my own creative way, but it was definitely an escape for sure.
Oh,
for sure.
Oh. Okay, so tell us how you got the idea for this story, a little bit about your story, because I know a little bit. I'm so sorry, I never did read it. He gave it to me to read it. I never read it.
It's changed probably so much.
I have read none of your plays and none of your books, except for the ones that I helped write.
Right, so we're
honesty hour.
Yeah.
It's like that's getting real.
And I was talking about Charmer, this book you worked on for some times, and I'm like, yeah, that was a great. And finally, I was like,
read that one.
Oh,
that was good.
Well, she gave it to me, and I was like, I'll read it. And then she started asking questions. And I'm like, finally, I'd be like, Donna, I didn't read it.
Stacey did my whole book.
I did. I will say, I'm now that I'm thinking about it, I'm only remembering kind of bits of it. But if I were to pick it back up, I would know. I would know all my things. But at the time that you'd given it to me, I was reading it for editing purposes. I wasn't reading it for enjoyment, So,
but you did enjoy it.
But I did. Yes, I did. Absolutely.
I have to get back to that. I have to follow my own advice.
Yeah.
But,
yes, you do.
Whatever you want to do tomorrow.
I read the first chapter or two because we sat next to each other. He came to my classroom one day and we just sat at the table and we went through each of. I think it was just our first chapter.
Yes, it was.
And we specifically said, well, look at this part and maybe rethink how you address this, and maybe you should put more dialogue, or actually for me less dialogue.
Yes.
So
armed with red pens.
Yes, and we slashed each other's work, but that's what it takes. You have to learn how to let stuff go. So anyway, that was when I first knew you were writing this story. So that was Tales of the Bardenwood.
Tales of the Bardenwood is the series name.
Okay.
And the first book, my debut novel, which I don't have a launch date yet, but it is coming. Just I don't have a date yet. It's called The Blackstone Ritual.
Okay.
And that's going to be the first one. The publisher that I have wants they have first right of refusal, which basically means that they get first dibs on anything else that I write that has to do with this piece of work. But my editor has already expressed interest in, getting a hold of the second novel, which I have to start drafting ASAP. So there's that whole bit. Right now, I'm still in editing, but I'm at the home stretch of editing. So
tell us how that all worked. Well, first of all, tell us about the book deal. You did a pitch fest.
I did it was a pitch fest. Basically, there are two. I wouldn't say two. There are many ways you can publish a book, but there's like a fork in the road. You can go two ways. You can self-publish or you can traditional publish. There are a multitude of ways to do each, but those are the two main ones I would have to say. But I could have chosen to self-publish, but most people who self-publish have to, foot the bill for everything. And
it is
I'm
not
a millennial,
cheap.
and it is not cheap. I'm already broke. It is not cheap. So self-publishing, I knew, was a way to get my story out very quickly. But it would have to, where it went would have to completely rely on me. And no help from a publisher, no help from an editor, no help from anyone. So I didn't go that route. I was going to go the traditional route first to try out and see. It ended up being very fruitful for me. Basically, what you do is, first of all, you've got to write a book.
Yes.
Which is the most difficult part, I think, for any writer, is to have something and go, there, I'm done. It's here. I've done it. So I had to do that, which took a few years. It took about 2 years total to write my first book. And then once I had the book, I was able to query the book, which is basically pitching it to agents. Yes, because in publishing, it's just like if you were selling a house. You don't necessarily need a realtor to sell or buy a house, but It helps a lot. You get more money for your home. You get better deals on a home that you would buy.
They deal with all the legal junk.
They deal with all the legal stuff that you don't have to worry about. They deal with all of that. And so, but getting an agent is also the most difficult part of querying.
Right.
What did you? I mean, did you just Google agents near me? Or?
Yes, basically. Well, actually, and I can do a little plug here. Kathy Verbeek, who Donna turned me on to.
Yes.
I joined a private Facebook group with her and learned how to pitch agents. She also provided so much information and even brought agents into the Facebook group for us to pitch directly. I got to converse with many agents, but I mean, I had no idea before you had sent me that. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just researching things on the internet. I found something that said you need to get an agent, so I was just emailing agents like, "Hi, I've got a book. If you'd like to read it, let me know." But that is not how that goes.
Nope.
I never got responses, obviously. But there's a whole formula. A query has it's just like a essay for a university or something. It's like so meticulous, and you've got to just hook an agent. And I actually did not get an agent, but I participated in what they call a pitch fest, and they have multiple kinds, mostly on Twitter, whereas the writing community is immense. Any advice that I can give to any writers, please go on Twitter. Go to Twitter. That's where you will find everything you need. All the agents are on Twitter. All the publishers are on Twitter. It's a huge, huge, huge community for writing and publishing and all that. But I participated in this pitch fest, and the publisher, my editor, who is the acquiring editor for my publisher, Literary Wanderlust, he requested, he hearted my tweet about my book. And you pitch about your book, it's like a little short little
as long as a
blurb.
tweet.
Yeah, long as a tweet. You have about 120 characters to get someone interested in your book, and you use the right hashtags, and then on a certain day and time, the professionals in the industry go through all these hashtags, and they'll like something if they want you to, query them. So he liked my tweet. I queried them. I went through the whole process of getting an agent. He basically acts as my agent, but he doubles as my editor. So, and he didn't have to actually pitch any publishers, because agents have to do that. Once you partner with an agent, that you sign the paperwork, and then they go to work on pitching the right publishers and getting into, because they have the connections in the industry. Right. So he didn't have to do any of that. He just, did everything with me the same way an agent would. He requested my first 5, which is the first 5 chapters of your book, and then he requested full, which is the full manuscript, that's what they call it. And he read it, and then I got a phone call this January while I was in Hawaii on my honeymoon. I know it was perfect. It was the very end of the honeymoon. It was like our last day, and I got a call from him, and it was awesome, because that's the call, as they call it, quote unquote, the call. And basically, that call is to interview you and see if you're not a psychopath.
Right.
Find
out who you really are.
Find out who you really are. See if you're someone that they're willing to work with, someone who's going to compromise, or anything, whatever they're looking for. That's what that call is for. And after the call was up, Patrick, who's my editor, who is now one of my very good friends, we're very close, as you and an editor should be.
Right.
But he went to go hang up the phone. He said, "Okay, well, I've got everything I need. We'll call you in 3 days if we're willing to move forward." And I was like, "Okay." And it was that weekend we were coming back. We had landed in Louisiana, and I got an email from him saying that they would want to work with me, and they wanted to offer, a contract. And
that is amazing.
Yes, it was awesome.
Did you get an advance?
No, I did not. Okay, so since my publisher is a small press publisher, they do not do an advance, which basically an advance is what you get if you get anything that's considered a large publishing house, like any of the big five, you're going to get an advance. They're going to pay you what they think the book sales will be worth, and then you don't start making royalties until you make that advance back.
Right.
I get royalties immediately since they're a small press publisher, and they really focus. My publisher, in particular, focuses on publisher-author relationships. So they work with me. They have been an absolute dream come true. Most authors, when they get a book deal for the big five, they, for lack of a better word, become an employee.
Yeah.
They don't have any control over their cover design. They have no control over the marketing schemes. They have to show up to where they need to show up to. And as successful as those authors are, I completely understand having to do all that, but I toiled and toiled over this decision for about 2 weeks. I spoke with my wife and everything, and I was, completely dreading it. I was like, is this the right decision? And, I was only querying for a year. What if I had queried for longer and actually found an agent and then found one of the big five? My book could be available in Barnes and Noble across the nation and all this good stuff. But my wife owns a business, a subscription box service called Fake Rate, and they send out a book every month. That goes to, they have hundreds of subscribers from all over the nation, all over the world. They have multiple countries that they ship to. I can't even count how many. And they are just growing and growing and growing, and they're growing at an exponential rate. And by the time my book comes out, I will be looking at close to or over at least 1,000 units going out with these boxes. So that's something that I couldn't,
So you had some marketing in place.
I had some marketing in place, and basically this book is going to do as well as hard as I work. And my publisher will do that too. Literary Wanderlust is, they have their connections and they have their marketing and things that they'll do for me. But ultimately, it is kind of up to me of how far it goes with a little bit of extra help.
So did they expect some kind of platform? Did they want you to start growing your email list? They didn't.
They recommended it, but they don't expect it. They have worked with me so beautifully and so fluidly. They've been so willing to bend because they actually don't publish in hardback typically, but Fake Rate, my wife's business, only ships hardback.
Okay.
So they agreed to do an exclusive hardback just for Fake Rate.
Wow.
And if the hardback ends up being in high demand, they've offered to, see what's possible. They've just been very open from the whole get-go with everything that I have. I have a friend, or not a friend, but a friend of my wife's, really, through connections that she's made with her business. She's met an illustrator named Gabriella Bujdoso, who is from Germany. And she is, I can't even describe to you how fantastic of an artist she is, but she was willing to do art for my book, just art, just like, illustrations or anything. And I asked her if she would be willing to do the cover, and she's never done a book cover before. And, my publisher reached out to her personally, spoke with her, Skyped with her, everything, and agreed to let her do the cover for
Wow.
it was something that I would have never gotten with a big five publisher.
Yeah, they would have said this is the cover, and you would have said,
and
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll be over here. So.
That's really cool to show that there are way more paths than what might come to your mind. Instantly, if you're an aspiring writer, you might think that there's like one or two ways to do it, and that's it. But obviously, there are many, many different routes you can take, and many different publishers other than just the really big ones that you've always heard of. So I'm already thinking like we're going to title this "Great Advice for Aspiring Writers." That's what's going through.
You should never say aspiring writers.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you shouldn't say aspiring writers because this is just a personal thing. I think if you're writing, you're a writer.
Ooh.
Period. You're not aspiring, you're doing it.
Yes.
Because writers become screenwriters, become authors, become playwrights. Those are, advice for aspiring playwrights or advice for aspiring directors or screenwriters or authors is one
Okay.
thing. You see what I'm saying?
I see what
I always like to correct people because as someone who wrote and is currently writing, it is so hard to take yourself seriously. It is so difficult to I have just started now, and I've had my publishing contract since January. I've just now assumed the role of author. That's what I am. I have a job that I do, a side job, but what I'm striving for, I'm an author, and that's what I am. I'm published. My book's not out yet, but that's what I am. And it's hard to say things like that and really ground them in. But I've always been a writer. I've been a writer since I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get that.
Mhm.
I think that's great advice. Is start taking yourself seriously.
Yes.
Because no one else is going to if you don't. And
Absolutely.
people are gonna laugh at you. And I mean, we interviewed a guy named Lester, as I've mentioned before, and during that podcast, it brought up that whenever Donna was teaching him, I wasn't even born yet. And
Wow.
I know. And now, here we are running a business together. And of course, when you first say that, like you're like, oh, okay, you're running you're a business owner. When I'm like, oh, I have a business, people are like, okay. So I have the same boat. I have to start being like, I have a business.
Yes.
I have a freaking certificate. Like that's right there that says I have a business, and it's and same thing with it's like, oh, so you're running a business with your teacher. Okay, that's cute. It's like, no, we're having. You have to take yourself seriously, or no one else is going to. And eventually, what I've found, especially with the people, with my friends, who even though they're your friends, they're still like, okay, yeah, okay. Hey, I ordered a cappuccino. Can you hurry up and make that for me?
Exactly.
And finally, I found that I'm like, oh, hey guys, I'm going to work today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about
It's work.
I'm talking about coming here, and they're starting to get that. That's something I'm noticing, is the more I take it seriously, the more I say I'm going to work today. It's calling it work and saying, oh, I'm going to work on my business, or I got this interview, or I have this business call coming up. It really helps everyone else around you take you seriously. And then they're going to click on the stuff you send them. When I'm sending, hey guys, check this out. They're going to say, oh, this isn't just like a stupid little thing that my friend made. This is legit.
Well, that's another thing.
Thoughts become things.
Yes, I do say that all the time. Thoughts become things.
Yeah, speak it into existence.
But we live in the space of where we are going to be. And that's what I was going to ask you. So like our big dream is, make our living from what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So we're starting to create courses. We've been looking at all the different ways you can monetize blogs and be affiliate, all of the different ways. And I was telling David yesterday, I'm like, we started this less than 2 months ago. We have not missed a Sunday since we started. We have a few
awesome.
We have a few blogs in the back burner because we sometimes interview a person for 2 hours, so we'll have 2 episodes, and we're just constantly moving forward. And another thing that I have been very hesitant about, and you might be able to speak to this, is like getting help. It's just the idea of, oh, I can figure it out. But David and I sat and listened to a man that has just made amazing money and is so cool about, hey, this is how I did it. Let me help you out. And we had to pay money to help us out. But I mean, if there wasn't somebody saying, this is how you do ads on Facebook, this is how you get it,
I had to pay Kathy Varick to learn how to query people and learn how to do things to get my publishing deal. I mean, it's
investment.
It is.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those things where you start saying, okay, this is what I want to do. And I've told David this many times. I've been reading about how to do this for probably 10 years and buying courses and whatever, but I never hired somebody specifically to say, I want you to be the person that guides me. I use the analogy, guide me through this jungle so I can get to the nirvana on the other side. But I live in that space. Like this is where it is,
Right.
So what is the big dream for you?
I can honestly say that and I'm sure some fiction writers can speak to this, some maybe not, I don't know, but there was never a real goal in writing Tales of the Bardenwood. It was an idea, and it was a good one, and I've had ideas for stories I never called them books. It was just
Right.
like a story, you know, whether it was just something small or big, or it didn't really matter. Ideas for stories would come like, oh, that would make a good story. I should write that down. I had notes for all kinds of weird things from growing up and everything, but this one was a good idea. And I was like, I've got to write this down. I've got to do it. And there was never any goal beyond that, other than make it a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like my one, like the dream goal would be for like, the dream, like here's the dream and like way over here is the other dream.
So we understand what you're saying.
Yes, that dream would be for it to be made into film or some type of live adaptation.
So it becomes part of the culture.
My God, that would be, I'm such a visually stimulated person and I'm such a movie geek. Like I would just pass out and die.
You want to see Halloween costumes of your characters.
Yes, I want to go to conventions and see cosplays. I want to see people drawing my characters. That seeing it become a thing and even having the smallest type of fandom is probably like my biggest goal. And to just hold the book in my hands and go, I did this. I made this. It's a thing.
I love it.
So,
well, talk us through the timeline. You said January is when they offered and you accepted after 2 weeks. So it was still in January.
2 weeks.
All right. So I mean, if we're still in the same calendar year, you've been going through editing process. Have they talked about like the inside layout of the book? Are they going to include illustrations or?
They will not be including illustrations. It is a young adult book, and although I did toss the idea to them, it does kind of give it a middle grade vibe. Some authors can get away with it. You know, Leigh Bardugo has illustrations in some of her books, so she's a very, very prominent YA author. But again, she has the support of, you know, a big 5 publisher, and they can get away with things like that. For me, that's not exactly the case. I understand it. You know, but again, that just dives right back into me being a visually stimulated person. And like, I would love pictures in my book. And even though it's a, you know, YA, I still would love to see pictures. But, you know, it's not always that way. For most YA books, it's not that way. But after they offered publication, we went straight into editing. We went straight into it. I got my first batch of edits. I turned it back into Patrick within 4 days. And he was shocked. He was like, oh my God, I gave you a 60-day deadline and you turned it back in 4 days. I was like, dude, I know this book. Like it's on the back of my hand. Like I know, I know it. And a lot of his edits in the beginning were, I don't want to say minor, but they were easy enough to fix. Punctuation, things like that. So I holed up in my office, got some snacks, you know, and just went to town for the next 4 days and turned it back to him. But he is also not just my editor. He has other authors that he edits for and stuff. So he took his time getting it back to me, and he finally got my second batch of edits to me about 2 weeks ago. And I'm currently working on those, but they're doozies. They're like
developmental changes.
They're developmental. They're what we call rewrites.
Yes.
Which just
is it hard for you to do that?
Oh
yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like,
it is the most difficult part of it's so far. This has been the most difficult part.
Now, are you saying it's difficult because it's like just a lot of work to do, or is it hard to let go of what it is you wrote? Are you finding that to be a problem?
Definitely both.
Have you gotten into arguments with him about like, no, I'm not changing this?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And he is very good. He's very good at what he does. But you're bound to encounter differences of opinion.
Oh, definitely.
With the way things go and the way things sound and the way things flow. And as an author, or as a writer, or as a creator, it is very, and I think I've been pretty good with it, Patrick. I think I've been pretty good with it. Of being able to go, is this material that he's asking me to either change or get rid of, is it something that's going to, is it something that I can do without? Is it something that the reader will not miss?
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to just let it go. But there are certain things like, for me, it's names.
Yeah.
I go through so much trouble and so much and then you spend so much time with these names of these characters, the names of the places, they become reality. And then someone comes along and is like, I don't like this name. We need to change that. And I'm like, oh, and that's the worst one for me because it feels like I'm having to let go of something. It's like getting a pet and having it be named something and have that pet for a long time, and then someone comes into your life and says, "Oh, this isn't Fido. This is Spike." And you're like, "No, it isn't. It's Fido." And it's whatever. It's just one of those things. But what my edits now consist of are rewrites, and rewrites are one hard yes, like you said, for letting go of the material that I love or like. But on the flip side of that, it is grueling work to go back and rewrite something because at least me as a writer, there is no fluff in my book. It is all there for a purpose, and I circle back to things and I bring things back up for nuance and things like that. So when my editor tells me, I don't like this paragraph, we need to reword this or we need to change this, I'm like, because I changed this paragraph, now I've changed this entire chapter, I've changed this interaction with this character, I have to redo that. And so basically what I'm having to do is go back through and read my whole book from top to bottom to make sure that everything is cohesive and flows and I'm not using or referencing a scene that has happened before, but that is now taken out. And it's just grueling, and it's hard to get into. It's easy to get into a creative mood. I think when it comes to writing, like I can just sit down at the computer, I can play my medieval orchestral tracks, and I can wear my gear, like all my nerd gear.
Well, yeah,
dress up in Renaissance clothes, and I can I can put myself there and I feel it, and it comes after if I sit in there for a while. But editing doesn't happen that way. You've seen these words a million times, and you start skipping things and missing things, and it just becomes a big mess of letters and phrases, and things don't connect, and then you have to stop yourself from nitpicking and changing things, and it's just a nightmare. So right now, I'm probably having the hardest time this whole road.
So after you finish this round, then he will have to read it top to bottom, and then one more round. I mean, is there a total number, or are you just keep doing it?
Really, from what I've heard from other authors and stuff, it's just whenever we both kind of deem it ready. According to Patrick, there should be no more rewrites after this.
But there should be no more. Have to read it and find if there's any consistency.
But we still have to maintain continuity and all of these other things that I have to do, and he'll have to read them and approve them and fight me a little. And hopefully, after I send him these edits and they're done, he can just go through and decide whether or not he wants to spend the time debating it or fixing it or just leaving it and going from there. So, and then we'll be on to cover design, which is the part I'm so excited for.
So is there a projected date? Like, what's the general? A year and a half, 2 years?
I don't think it's going to be a year. I am very much hoping and praying that it is early next year, like same time.
From just 1 full year.
Literally 1 full year. I'm hoping and praying. It just all depends. Thankfully, Gabby, the artist who is doing my cover, is very fast and very good. I mean, she's damn good. There are very few illustrators I've seen that are as good as her. And the fact that just the sheer fact alone that I'm getting some of her art on my cover is already boosting my sales and the hype around the book, because she has a following of thousands.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, she is a huge deal, and she's just going to get even bigger from here. So I'm very excited for that. But yes, next year, because I really want to do my launch here in Denham. I want to do the launch at hopefully Cavalier Bookhouse in the Antique Village.
I'm sure they want to do that. Absolutely.
I think so. I haven't personally met the owners yet, but I know our circles just connect. I know so many people who know them.
Yeah, go talk to them now.
I think I might. You know, I haven't done it yet because it just feels kind of
preliminary.
It feels a little bit way ahead of the game because I just don't even have the book yet or a launch date. So I feel like you're just gonna go. Yeah, that would be great. Just come contact us again when you're ready.
Yeah.
So I've kind of just been putting it, on the back burner. But my wife is, nipping at my heels, trying to get me to, develop marketing plans and things like that to get everything ready and appearances and do things like book conventions and festivals and things like that where I'm going and, breathing life into, the book.
So we keep talking about this book, but we haven't even said what genre it is. But I think we can figure it. It sounds. I don't think it leaves much of the imagination with the title, but it sounds fantasy, medieval fantasy. You said you put on your medieval music.
Yes.
Yeah. Young adult medieval fantasy. How long is the book?
Right now, without I have to do a few additions to the edits that I have, but right now we're sitting at about 80,000 words.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize. The first question I get asked by a lot of people, or one of the first questions, is, "How many pages is your book?" And I'm like,
"It's all about words."
It's all about words. I have no idea how many pages my book is going to be. Pages matter to readers, not to writers and publishers. Because I have no clue. I just know that it's about 80,000 words, which I believe the first, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, sits between 80 to 100,000. So it's probably going to be about as long as this. That's what I'm kind of guessing. And it's like the first one I can put to mind because most people have read that book and they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
Okay.
So that's
I have
about
that
how
book, so I can
right. You got to see it.
You've
You've seen it sitting on your shelf since you were a kid. So that's that's
awesome.
about how long it should be. I'm guessing.
And what can you tell us about the story without? I don't know how much you've given away, how much you've already told anybody.
You want me to pitch my book to you guys?
Yeah. Let's see if we want to pick it up.
Okay, so basically the story centers around a 17-year-old boy named Arden Ford. He is a stable boy and merry prankster in a small village in a medieval kingdom in the land far, far away. I think the tweet that I used.
I'm glad you said that. I wanted to hear it.
Yes, I think the tweet that I used to hook my publisher, and I could be wrong, Patrick. I don't know, but I think it was the one where I compared the book as if Aragon met Spider-Man. Like that's, I know, right?
My jaw just stopped.
If Aragon met Spider-Man, basically Ard wakes up on his 17th birthday and weird things start to happen to him. He starts developing kind of these superhuman abilities that he can't explain.
Puberty.
Yeah, exactly. Metaphors. But basically, it's kind of and Arden really reminds me a lot of Peter Parker.
Awesome.
As far as
I'm hooked.
Yeah, he's a young boy, and I kind of took from a lot of inspirations. Like Aragon is probably one of my favorite young male characters. Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, Peter Parker. All of these
all fit the same archetype.
Exactly, they're basically the same archetype in a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
But basically, he wakes up one morning, discovers these powers, and he finds himself in the company of a witch who lives in the Forbidden Woods, the Bardenwood, near his home, and kind of opens his eyes to a world that he doesn't know anything about and what's actually happening to him. I won't give much away. But he goes on a journey of kind of self-discovery to kind of find out what's happening to him, what it is that he truly is, and the story kind of plays on from there. And I also have, other things happening in the background. I have some side characters that play out very importantly, and my perspective is mainly it's third person, and my perspective is mainly on Ard and his struggles, but I do flip between a few different characters.
That's. I want to know more. I want to know so much more. I hope you can tell us more after this podcast. I am hooked. Yes. Okay, so let's a couple questions. I love this stuff. I'm buying this book. I want you to know. I'm a big fantasy. You had me on Spider-Man and Aragorn. Like, everything. So, are there other races in this world? Whatever you want to tell us. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious.
There are. Okay. I definitely draw from more. I know it's kind of tropey, but I definitely tend to draw more Western European folklore. I'm trying to. I desperately love Scandinavian folklore and Swedish folklore. Kind of the ones that you don't really see a lot of. You'll see a lot of it in like Guillermo del Toro's work.
Okay.
It's just their fairy tales just have a much darker tone.
Very bizarre dark tone to it.
As much as I love J.R.R. Tolkien, because I do.
Yeah.
J.R.R. Tolkien, sorry, I called it Tolkien my whole life, and realized when the movie came out that it's pronounced Tolkien, so there you go. But I do love his work, and I love the elves and the dwarves. But in this world, they're magical and fantastical creatures kind of keep to themselves, and they're not really like Ard does not know. He does like we do. He doesn't. But that's just fairy tales.
He doesn't know about the fish people running around.
Exactly.
Awesome.
That's why it's called Tales of the Bardenwood, because anything that tends to happen, they're like, oh.
It's kind of like
you're not a witch. It's Tales of the Bardenwood. Like you're just, it's not real.
True.
That's really cool.
Yeah. When Ard first meets the witch in the book, who is a very large character, she's kind of opening his eyes to things and telling him, this is real. It's happening. It's not fairy tales, but it's not exactly how you know it, because he meets her. He's like, a witch. Where's your broomstick and your green skin and warts? And she's of course pretty and young and just very different. And I won't give too much away because she's probably one of my favorite characters that I have. But basically, Ard is kind of introduced to this world that he is a part of in a way. But the main problem is that Ard inadvertently releases an ancient evil upon the world that he lives in, and may now be like serving him.
So maybe the powers aren't really good.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot. The way I actually even rehearsed my pitch now that I think about it, so that I have it down pat.
I'm in. You got me.
Basically, he wakes up, has these powers, and then inadvertently releases something terrible, and may now be in service to it.
Love it.
That's
you got him off of it.
I'm so excited.
Logistical. I was going to ask how many words, but when I wrote my book that you read, somebody I talked to about it said it's middle grade. And so it's about kids in high school, but you always write a little bit older for your audience. So you're talking about a 17-year-old, but they're calling it young adult. Like, is it because they're older characters too, or you're going to follow him through his growing up? Or?
I think the main reason that was a very big issue between me and the publisher and Patrick, my editor. My book, and what was probably the biggest hill that I couldn't get over during querying, was the fact that I pitched it as a young adult book because young adult things happen in it. I do have a bit of violence. I do have a bit of things that you would not find in a middle grade. I won't go into too much detail, but definitely not something. I don't have any sex or anything like that, but there are themes and things that happen that are just. Some people in junior high, or some parents of junior high children, may be like, this is
too much.
Too much.
It's definitely not immature.
Yes, it's not immature, but in the same or on the same coin, it does have a very middle grade
lightheartedness.
Yes, it opens, and Ard is, pranking the village lord.
This isn't Game of Thrones,
exactly,
where people's heads are getting chopped off
in the first
second.
chapter.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, so it has a very middle grade opening. So a lot of the times I would get requests from agents, for my first 5, like the first chapter, and they're like, "Oh, you picked this as young adult, but this seems very middle grade to me." But that's how it plays out. It doesn't have a very, Bell's provincial town opening.
Yeah.
And so it is a young adult. We decided to go with young adult because of the things that happen in it. And I talked with Patrick and I said, this is always why I pitched it as young adult. I don't have an issue with it being middle grade.
Right. But you just think it fits the young adult category.
I just don't think that these are not middle grade themes. And the more, as the series goes on, more things happen, and he's, Ard grows older, and whatever. So it didn't seem to fit. So we actually had to change some ages around.
Yeah.
I had Ard initially was 18, but 18 is like the cutoff for young adult. If you have an 18-year-old character, it's starting to get adult. So we had to make him 17.
But when he turned 18.
Exactly. No, he actually turned 17.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what I had. He was 17
right.
and on his 18th birthday. But that's just because it seemed like a good number.
I get you. Yeah. I mean, it's your world. You make it the age you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. You can make 16.
Exactly. Benefit of writing fantasy.
Right. So I had another question, if I could jump. How many books do you have planned for the series?
It's right now I have it planned for 4. My publisher has mentioned, or at least Patrick has mentioned, trying to make it a trilogy. I would love for it to be a trilogy, and I get the appeal of trilogies, but the more I sit and ponder and see how much is happening, like 4 is the bare minimum. It's got to be to have up the story, at least where I am right now.
Now, you said you hadn't even really started on the second one, so do you have the grand outline somewhere? Or
Absolutely.
Is it just, okay, so you do have it.
I outlined the entire series from start to finish, characters, arcs, and all within 3 days.
So tell us about that. I've been meaning to come back to that. Where did that inspiration come from?
That, I'll say very first inspiration I can even remember having was watching Game of Thrones, and it was an episode having to deal with the children of the forest.
Okay.
And I've always loved. Don't get it twisted. I love a good Forbidden Forest. I am a sucker for it. I love the appeal of the Forbidden Forest. I love the whole, line in the sand. Like I love a tree line. I love those things where it's like, a border. I love that.
It's like what's over there.
What's beyond those woods, and that goes back to when I was a kid, and I used to. Where my first home was, where I grew up, there was my yard, my backyard, and then these woods that I was never allowed to go into. Southeast Louisiana. My parents were like, "Don't go in the woods because of snakes and stuff," but that didn't stop me from thinking, what else could be hiding out there? So my imagination ran wild with that. So I'm a sucker for Forbidden Forest. I remember watching an episode about the children of the forest, and I was like, man, what if the children of the forest were like, some kind of villain? Like that would be a really good villain, like some kind of forest spirit or something. And it just kind of branched from there. I don't really necessarily have that, but that was like the first moment I was like, let me go flesh some things out. Let me go. I know I want a forest. That's all I know.
Yeah.
You said you did it in how long? 3 days?
3 days. It was the day of the 2016 flood.
Wow.
Yes. Yep. I actually wrote a blog post about this. It was my first blog post for my website. And it was the 2016 flood. It was the night of the storm. So it was that
pouring down rain.
Friday night. It was pouring down rain, and we were stuck inside. And we lived in Baton Rouge at the time, so we were not affected, my wife and I. But it was raining, it was storming, and it was that is good creative energy right there. So I just went and did things and woke up the next morning, and my hometown was underwater, and thankfully my family was safe and everything. But I couldn't do anything. We were waterlogged. I couldn't get anywhere. Couldn't leave. Our house wasn't flooded, but the roads around us were. I couldn't get anywhere. So I was just stuck in the house, and I stayed in my office. And for the next 3 days, it was just complete word vomit.
That is so amazing.
Just character names, character bios, character arcs. Then it was how everybody fits into the story, and then it was creating the map and putting the locations of the names and the cities and the villages and the towns and everything came together 3 days. It's probably the coolest thing I've ever done.
I was about to say, it sounds like one of the coolest things ever.
It just happened. I cannot explain to you. I've never had a creative regurgitation that was that strong, but it did, and it was 3 days. And I just, now I'm working on the meat.
The story started with you being told, don't go past that line, and it just festered in your mind. And then something brought it to you at the exact moment when you would have the time to sit there and write it down.
Yeah.
I mean, J.K. Rowling wrote it fell into her head while she was on a train.
Right.
And so that whole train ride, she's sitting there and she did not have a pen. So it just went around and around and around in her head. And she just thought and thought and thought about this bespectacled boy who didn't know he was a wizard. That's how she described it in interviews. She got home and word vomit, and that's how it started.
Out it comes.
So that is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
That is just phenomenal.
My wife can attest to it. I mean, I was in that office for the entire day, every day. I would wake up and go into the office, shut the door, and I would just consume it. And I would come out every now and then. I would come out to eat, obviously, and I would come out I would pitch her ideas, and some of them, Megan actually inspired at least two, if not three, of majorly important characters without even trying. I would walk out to go talk to her to talk about a plot hole or talk about what does this sound like to you or anything, just get her advice. There was one time when I walked out and I had an evil queen archetype character. And she will be everyone's favorite. I already know because that's how fandoms work. And everyone loves a good, dark, broody queen. Everyone. So I know she's going to be everybody's favorite. But I needed something to give her just a little more.
Yes.
More than just being
a
snarky, beautiful, evil queen. I just want what was going to set her apart. And I walked in to the living room about to ask Megan, hey, what is something that you would think would set an evil queen apart? I literally walked in, and Megan was sitting on the couch watching TV or doing something. Maybe reading. I don't know. She was just sitting on the couch, and our dog Pippin was laid across her lap, just all fancy. And his paws crossed, and he was just laying there, and he looked all regal and everything. And he's a rat. So, but it was the fact that he was sitting there, and I went, yes, there it is. We're gonna give her a dog, a big, scary dog that follows her around, and then that's what she's known as the Hound Queen. And she has, that she's known throughout the land to be this fearsome, person, but she's beautiful and venomous, and she has this gigantic spectral dog that follows her around that no one knows anything about. No one knows where he came from or anything, but he's said to, eat her prisoners and do all these things. Just a bunch of rumors swirl about.
I hope he's a puppy. I hope it's the smallest dog in the entire world.
Oh no, he is large. He is all that, but that's how that.
That's amazing.
You have a dog named Pippin?
I do. And then a dog named Mary.
Mary and Pippin. It's the greatest.
Like I said, we're big Tolkien fans. So
Good.
We have a cat named Weasley. So Harry Potter fans too.
Right, but it's an orange cat.
He is. He's a redhead. So he's
it didn't take long for, I think, all of our listeners to figure out it's a fantasy novel. We were talking about this at the time.
It's pretty obvious.
So I wanted to talk to you about marketing, and you said you had a website. So talk to us about how you deal with your website, any kind of advice, and what you've done.
My wife, it was actually, she started it. I helped a little, but she got me a domain.
Right.
Sorry, a domain.
What
for
is it?
SwearingenDurham.com.
Okay.
Very simple, but it's through my website. You can subscribe to my newsletter. You can see a lot of things about me. It's basically just a place to go, like if you need to know anything about
About
this
you.
book,
So
about
you-
me or the book or anything.
Newsletter, you do that yourself?
Yes, I do.
And how often?
I haven't really had any updates as of late because I'm just editing. But
Okay.
every now and then, if I have an idea for a blog post or anything that I want to talk about, I can write a blog and everyone is notified.
Okay, when you say everyone, so how do you grow your email?
Word of mouth.
Okay, because that's what we've been learning, so we can share some things with you.
Yes.
So email is lifeline. And so what we're learning is you need something that when people come to your website, the first thing they see is, hey, can I send you a free whatever? And it could just be maybe one of your early outlines of your book, but you get their email.
By the way, go to our website, davidandonnacreative.com.
We just have made our first landing page. And so we created just a list of 25 ways to be creative because we're Stay Creative. And once you have an email list going, that's your marketing. And you just keep finding ways to get more emails. And that's when you are able, you start doing ads and driving people to your website. But they can't get past that page unless they either give you the email or say no thanks. It's the first thing they see. And so that's just stage one of marketing is get that email list going. And then from there, and so you could use, of course, Megan's email and what is your artist name again?
Swearingen Durham.
No, your artist.
My artist. Okay. Yes. Gabriella.
Yes, so her email. So you have some places to branch, but you've got to get your own.
Right.
And just keep growing it. And just keep finding ways to get more people to come to your website or come to wherever your landing page is. So that's our first thing that we're trying to get started. But so you have stuff going and your word of mouth and friends and stuff. So what else have you done specifically for marketing?
I can't really, nothing really.
Right.
I created an Instagram page for myself, and I post updates of the book there. I post my little adventures where I go. And, basically, my Instagram is for interaction purposes.
What's your Instagram?
Swearingen Durham. I'm sorry, Swear Durham.
Swear Durham.
Swear Durham.
Okay.
All right.
I'll leave those links in the description.
Yes, definitely. So let's talk about your wife's business and how that all came about.
She was doing this. She had always mentioned, she mentioned before, I want to do a book box. She's not the first to do it. There are other more popular, or more prominent, I should say, book boxes. But she was like, I want to do a book box and I want to base it for, young adult science fiction and young adult fantasy. And she had mentioned it, and I was just, oh, that's what a cute little hobby you have. And then she met her business partner, Brittany, who lives in Alabama, and they met through a mutual love of books and Instagram and things like that. And she started talking with Brittany, and she's, Megan was always talking about things, and it just was just talking. She would just be like randomly, oh, this happened today on Instagram. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it started so small, just like that. And then one day Megan was like, we're gonna do a book box, and I was like, oh. Okay, well then we'll go for it to do it. And I can't even remember how many boxes they sold for their first month. All I know is that I packed them out of my house. That's all I know. I know that.
Tell us what's in the book box. How does it work?
Basically, every month they send out a box that has a hardback edition of a new book. No old books or anything. It's always a book that's current. Hardback edition. It's comes with an author signature and a bunch of little, I don't want to say trinkets, but for lack of a better word.
Related.
Related to the book or the theme. And sometimes they do special edition boxes on top of the monthly box for big releases. So when they have, a release for a big YA novel like Dark Dawn or something like that that comes out, they work directly with the author, they work directly with the publisher to get the books out on time. And those boxes sell like you would not believe. Like it is startling how many people go for these
How
boxes.
have they grown the business? Is that all word of mouth?
All Instagram.
Okay.
It's mainly through Instagram they do all their stuff. And Instagram has a very big book fandom following. Twitter is great for writers and industry professionals, but Instagram is where the fans are. That's where everyone, they have, it's really called Bookstagram, hashtag Bookstagram.
So is that what they do? They do hashtags?
They do hashtags, they do marketing as many ways as they can. They're starting to discuss the possibility of doing marketing outside of that, going going into actual bookstores and local libraries and things like that. But right now they're just operating on mostly out of Instagram and Facebook and mostly online marketing, and they do a fantastic job.
So
Go ahead.
Oh, so like, how does it work? You go to their website and then you sign up for it, and
Yes.
you get shipped to you. How much does it cost a month?
Well,
I mean, to get a new book, like I think any price might be fair. Like I don't think
yeah, it's a
with a signature.
and they also give a free download to an ebook.
Okay.
For everything, so they get an ebook and a hardback edition.
Are they always the same book or different?
Different.
Okay,
They
cool.
have a different ebook that is, just that's what they do to kind of support self-publishing authors and things like that.
And is the ebook always new? Also, okay.
Exactly. Everything's always new and current.
So they don't have like a box that sells like anything older.
Yeah, they wouldn't have like a
Okay.
Exactly. They wouldn't have a Tolkien box.
They
should.
That's a good idea later. It's like,
go throwback to the classics.
Yeah.
like a loot box has like, you can get a Fallout box, you can get a Skyrim box, you can get a fantasy box. Like maybe that's something that could come up later. I can see that being really cool.
Yeah, she would. I'm sure they have so many ideas of where they want to go and stuff. I totally foresee that being a possibility. But yes, it does come with the hardback edition of the book, an ebook download, a letter from the author. That all comes with it. It's all exclusive, so you're not going to get this stuff anywhere.
And how much is it a month?
It depends on different levels of boxes. You can get one that comes with a T-shirt. You can get one that's just the book. You can get one that is a book and contents in T-shirt. I want to say they start at $29.95 a month or something like that. Do not judge me if I'm wrong. I think it's somewhere around there. $29.99 I think is like the
Base
standard box. Yeah, you can get just the book or the box and shirt.
All right. Well, I'll definitely leave a link to that website in the description. That sounds really awesome. I'm gonna check it out.
It's super cool.
So from when to now? When did you start?
They just made a year in March.
So first box number as opposed to number boxes now. Do you know that?
No, I don't know that, but it is exponential.
That's what I keep talking about. That's what people don't really understand. And I've been watching even just recently, like yesterday, a marketing video about that. Like you just literally have to start. And that's one of our big things. It's like whatever you want to do tomorrow, start today. And like your creativity with writing this book, you just had this flood of inspiration come through. You see, flood. Right. I mean, you actually acted on it. And look where it took you. You could have just said, well, that's cool that I have this great idea and it could sit in a box for 10 years. And you just were like, nope, and you knew all of your life you had this push. But so many people do, and they know they want to write. They know they have good stories, and they just don't make time. Because everybody can say, I don't have time, but you do. You just have to make time. How did you make time to write a book? Because you work, we never did get back to that, but you work all the time. So.
I do. I work a lot. And honestly, the main chunk the Blackstone Ritual was written during NaNoWriMo, which for anyone who does not know, any listeners who don't know, it is a nickname for National Novel Writing Month, which is
November. That's when I wrote Charmer.
Exactly. Yeah, so so many authors have participated in NaNoWriMo and lots of big famous books.
The program, in case you don't know, is to write, is it 60,000 total?
50,000, I thought.
Okay, 50,000 total. But there's a set number of words per day, so that by the time you get to the end of the month, you have a 50,000 word draft. And in many cases, that would be a whole story. But even if it's not, you have a 50,000 word start, and I think I actually finished my story before I hit the total, because you have to get to the total to get your trophy online.
Right.
So I just wrote like some extra character stuff. I think we even talked about that at one point. Yeah, I just told you, like, just try this. Like, just write anything that pertains that could maybe go back. And it just keeps you on track because so many other people are doing it. It is very
cool. And you get to, they have local meetups. You can actually go meet other writers.
I never did that.
Area.
Did you do it?
I did.
Okay.
I went to a very good few. I went to at least 10 or 12 meetups.
Wow.
And
I just did.
somewhere.
I was living away from home because that was during the flood.
Exactly.
I was going to my job as a school teacher at noon because of how we had the platoon to go to school, and I had nothing to do in the morning. I would just wake up early like I always did and sit and write. We went to my sister's over Thanksgiving. I was writing in the van. I mean, it just gives you a reason to do it. So it's a cool.
It's an accountability thing.
It is.
It doesn't cost anything. You don't really win anything. It's just
you and yourself.
Yeah, it's you and yourself, and it's a community there to back you. And 50,000 words. I hit my 50,000 word goal, and 50,000 words of the first draft of my story were written during that time. So,
I love that.
I'm hoping to do it again for
the next book.
Because I've barely gotten into it, and although I do know what happens, one thing to know where it's going, but to get that meat in there is another whole other game. So.
Do you play Dungeons and Dragons? I mean, to ask that this whole time, trying to find a moment to throw that in.
The infamous question. No, I do not. I've been asked.
All right, well, that's the show. We appreciate it.
No longer. So
we do need to find the end. So
okay,
we'll come around to a wrap up soon.
Yes, I've been asked before to be a dungeon master. Me and my wife, we did recently have a party get together. We sat down to learn.
Okay.
I can't say that I'm super into it yet, but
it's a lot. But once you got it, don't you want to be art? Like, don't you want to do that?
I would love it. That was one of the cool things. We did like a kind of a set character thing. We had characters already for us. But
making the characters the best.
Yeah, definitely.
There's an easier way to do it. We're not sponsored by them. They go to D&D. Just go to D&D Beyond. It's like a very straightforward. I bring it up because actually, genuinely, I play, and I have found that it has helped me a ton with making characters and then making stories. And like you're playing through the stories, and I've been a dungeon master where you just write stories that are, and it's really weird because you have to write stories for people to then play through.
Right.
So you have to be able to, be open and see what happens, what they do, but it's writing stories in this fantasy world, and it's a lot of help. I'm writing this story right now that I really like that is based that started from Dungeons and Dragons because I was playing a game and I just started coming up with this stuff, and then my friends came up with these characters, and I'm like, I'm going to steal that character and use this, and it's one of my favorite things I've ever done. So something I always tell people, I wrote a blog post about it, was if you just don't know where to start with writing a story or making characters, you just know you want to, try playing some D&D. Just play it, and all of a sudden you might have a list of like 5 really cool characters that you really like that you want to tell. So that's what happened to me. I just suddenly had a list of characters in front of me with bios and stats and everything. And I just think that's a great idea. So I was just wondering because you seemed like you might.
I get asked that one a lot.
It's a fair.
You can write a campaign.
Well, you could. You really could, though. Writing a campaign is a lot of fun. Just weaving a story. It's such a different thing. And you can publish campaigns. You can get these things published. That's something that would be, I've thought about before, not seriously, but people are playing with their friends. They write these campaigns and they decide, maybe I should just mess with Wizards of the Coast, and they're getting their campaigns published, and you get the art behind it. So that's something I could definitely see you doing. So just the thought. Well, if you ever play, you have to come back on the show and talk about it, and we'll have a whole separate podcast where we just talk about about Dungeons and Dragons.
Perfect.
We have a friend who comes over here often, and me and him talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and Donna just sits there like, cool. Great. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, but we should
wrap up.
We should wrap up, even though I don't want to. I want to keep talking about Dungeons and Dragons at any moment that I can.
So anything you didn't get to talk about that you want to plug in, or?
No, not really. I mean, I don't really. No.
So we can find you on your website.
Yes.
Swearingen
Durham.
.com.
That's it. SWERINGEN
Generation.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. And everything we've talked about, I will link it in the description below. Please, that all sounds really cool. I know I'm going to check it out. Hope you guys do too. Donna, are you going to check it out?
I am going to check it out.
You better check it out.
I really hope so. I expect to see you both at the launch party.
Swear, are you going to check it out?
I'm going to check I'm checking out of the library.
Yeah. Check out your own book.
I'm gonna do it.
That's going to be great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I felt that this was really educational for us and for all the listeners. Great advice for aspiring authors.
Aspiring authors.
I was saying,
All right.
I knew what I was doing. All right. This has been Creative Conversations with David and Donna. I'm David.
I'm Donna.
And I'm Swearingen.
Stay creative.